Good morning. I'm Ruth Van Lillian, the minister of this congregation. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa, a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. We recognize all the earth as sacred ground, and we welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us. We're so glad that you are here this morning. We invite you to connect with us through the comments or via our website or Facebook page. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting our 7 principles, including the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We bear witness to the pain and suffering of persons of color in our communities and across our country, and we continue in our commitment to fight injustice and to search for ways to build a better world. Black Lives Matter.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Snow, the lay service leader for today. Please click the link in our video description below for our order of service and other useful information. Our church website and Facebook page have information about our new online offerings. Also, members and friends are encouraged to read all Newsnet emails to stay updated on congregational matters. The prelude prepares us for the service.
We invite you to light a chalice of your own at home. This might be a simple candle in a bowl or something more elaborate you have made or purchased. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning. We worship together though we are at distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively.
Our opening words are call and response. I invite you to respond at home. We are seekers of truth. We welcome you to come in out of the storms of your lives. We are seekers of truth. We invite you to set aside disillusionment and disappointment. We are seekers of truth. Let go of what is artificial and false. We are seekers of truth. Leave behind the seductions and deceptions. We are seekers of truth. Here, your minds and your hearts can be opened. We are seekers of truth. We search together responsibly for truth and meaning. We are seekers of truth. In the clear light of truth, we will find freedom. We are seekers of truth.
This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family, we're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said, now love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. This the sum of human labor, true for me as well as you.
When we gather together in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I'll now light a candle in my home while you light a candle in yours. And we can together observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and your burdens by replying in the comments below. And we can engage together in celebration and condolence. I will now light a final candle for all burdens and celebrations shared in our virtual space that went unspoken. May the warm light of these flames bring us peace.
Let us spend a few moments of silence as we think about all the joys and concerns that have been mentioned and have gone unspoken today. Then I will close us with a few words. We are made of the dust of distant suns, and we breathe molecules of oxygen from the dawn of the earth. We are connected with everything that lives, that has lived, that will ever live. Let us find comfort and strength this day in remembering that we are never really alone. We have each other's company on the journey. And right now, remembering that is very important. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. This is the Story for All Ages for June 14th, 2020. Good morning. I'm so glad you've gathered to listen to the Story for All Ages. I want to say how much I miss all of you. We haven't seen each other in weeks and weeks, and it may be more weeks to come. But I wanted to let you know I'm still here. I'm still your minister, and I'm still thinking about you, each of you, every day. We've had some things going on across our country lately that I want to talk to you about. Events that we call protests. And if you've seen any of that on the television, you may see people who look and sound maybe like they're angry or upset, and some of them are. Some of it may seem exciting, and some of it may seem scary. I want to remind you that you can talk to your mom or your dad about these things and ask questions, because I want you to feel safe. I also wanted to tell you some of why the protests are taking place. There are two basic reasons. One is that the protesters, they carry their signs and they call out together to remind everyone that all people are human beings and they should all be treated the same. Everyone should be treated with kindness. And so they're reminding everybody of how important that is. And the other reason that they're protesting is that sometimes some people are being mean to other people. We call that injustice. And the protesters want to see that fixed wherever it takes place. Sometimes it takes place with encounters with the police. Sometimes it takes place at the city hall or at the state or even in our capital. And the protesters are saying we cannot have injustice. That is not acceptable. So, two reasons for protest: to remind us that all human beings are the same and should be treated well. And the other is that wherever human beings are not being treated well, that must be fixed. I hope you have a wonderful week. Let's sing our song.
This little light mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Out of gratitude for all that we have been given and all that we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust one another, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make the world better. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the generous donations and payment of pledges to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made via PayPal by using the link below or by mailing your check directly to UUCT. All undesignated contributions will be split between this congregation and our designated Split the Plate organization. Please remember in the comments field in PayPal to designate this pledge as to UUCT or in the comments field of your check. If you prefer to send a contribution directly to our Split the Plate organization, please mail that check directly to the organization. The offertory music will continue to play in this window as you open a new window to make your contribution. By the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts, our love is made real. Thank you for these gifts.
Good morning. Today I am specifically addressing those of you in our congregation who are racialized as white, like myself. Everyone else, is welcome to listen in if you wish. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home, a long way from home. Some years ago, in another sermon, I told the story of how I had once walked up to two wonderful African-American men I knew and respected, who had been friendly acquaintances for some years, and I thoughtlessly and flippantly asked, "So, what are you boys up to today?" The minute the words came out of my mouth, I knew I had done wrong. My mind turned sideways with guilt and shame as I realized I had just called two black men boys, and the history that came with that designation. I didn't mean to do it. I immediately wished I could swallow those words back, but there it was. I stood there with my mouth hanging open and horror on my face as they stared at me in amazement. They did what many black folk do when white folk commit microaggressions. They smiled and laughed uncomfortably and shook it off, making me feel like I had been forgiven and it was all okay. Keeping me comfortable was important to all three of us, but not for the same reasons. Immediately after I told that story, 4 white Unitarian Universalists came up to me and said the following in hushed tones: "You shouldn't feel bad about saying that. You didn't mean it. Black people shouldn't be so sensitive. Black people are racist too. Why can't black folks just get over all that old stuff so we can move forward?" Do any of those statements make you feel uncomfortable? White women's tears can move a nation. They will move people to mobilize. An indigenous woman's tears ain't gonna move nothing. A black woman's tears ain't gonna move nothing. So the piece I say about that is that this idea of being able to solve this race question in a way where white people are comfortable is a fallacy. Resmaa Menakem said those words. Are you getting uncomfortable? Well, here, let me help that along. Let's review some terms. White supremacy culture. This is our culture. North American culture. United States culture. We have all been born into it, all racialized identities: black, brown, golden, indigenous, and white. It is a culture where almost everything, every system, environment, legislation, financial institution, workplace, recreational facility, artistic venue, almost everything provides and protects white privilege and white advantage. It is the air we breathe, the water we swim in. Most of us who are racialized white are not aware of it. Anyone who is racialized black, brown, golden, or indigenous sees it everywhere, every day. Racialized means identified according to the artificial construct of race. Race is an idea created by the pseudoscience of white supremacy culture to artificially quantify the value of human beings according to physical characteristics and ethnic identity. Think eugenics. Think about whiteness as the ideal against which all other physical characteristics are measured. Remember the idea that blood had race? Homo sapiens is the human race. The rest is just variation of human physical characteristics. Racism is not the same as racialized prejudice. Racialized prejudice means having a negative prejudice against someone else based on their racialized identity in favor of one's own perceived racialized identity. Racism is racialized prejudice combined with power. Racism is a system of oppression whereby those in power, racialized as white, enjoy privilege and advantage over everyone else not racialized as white, including the restriction of access to resources, political power, personal dignity, and control over their own bodies. There is no reverse racism. If you think you as a racialized white person have been the victim of reverse racism, you need to reevaluate and re-educate yourself. All human beings have prejudices, but racism emanates from white supremacy culture. Only white people can be racist. Black, brown, golden, indigenous people may be prejudiced, but they cannot be racist. Resmond Mendekem is a therapist specializing in trauma, especially racialized trauma. He is an author, consultant, activist, and life coach for justice leadership. His special focus is in somatic therapy, connecting mind and body, and through this methodology, fighting against white body supremacy. He defines this as the cultural-wide belief that the white body is the ideal against which all other bodies are measured and found to be deviant. When my older son Liam was in preschool, he came home one day and announced that 2 new students had joined the class, a cute little girl named Sarah and a brown boy named Kamal. I asked him what Sarah looked like, and he smiled and replied, "Oh, she's pink like me." Now, in spite of living in a liberal household, Liam at 5 had already internalized the differences in outward appearance, and he had identified himself and his family with white, or pink as he called it then, and he identified Kamal as other than white, or in this case, brown. This is the beginning of racialization, of identifying people not only by appearance, but by whether they are part of the dominant white culture or deviant from it. White supremacy culture is why white women's tears can do so much and the tears of other women can do so little. White supremacy culture is why some police officers can commit violent atrocities against black citizens with little to no accountability. White supremacy culture is why there is inequity in every area of our lives between white and black. Healthcare, wealth, education, job opportunities, living conditions, and so much more. If you are not uncomfortable by now, either I'm not preaching very well or you're not listening. How about this? I am racist. I have been racist all my adult life, and I will probably still be racist when I die. And I believe that all white people are racist at some level, and many either don't know it or can't admit it. Remember that I have an adopted brother from Vietnam. I'm still racist. If you have persons of color in your family, you are still racist at some level. We can be friendly, close, and even love and be loved by people of color and still be racist. We have the advantage of white supremacy culture, and we have prejudices, and that's all it takes. Here's some more uncomfortable truth. My shame and guilt about my white privilege and racism are not a form of atonement that will get me off the hook. Shame and guilt are meaningless unless they motivate me to make the effort toward positive change. It's far easier to remain comfortably ensconced in my white privilege and send money to a justice organization. Maybe I'll march a bit too to make myself feel better. Maybe I'll dust off my dad's civil rights credentials and show them off. None of that will save me from my racism. I have to do the work, and I have to do it in a sustained manner. Okay, so now we're all uncomfortable and embarrassed and maybe angry or even appalled. This is tough stuff. It's hard to talk about, and it's hard to listen to. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. That is such a beautiful, poignant, moving song. The last time I sang it in a service was during a vigil following the shooting at our UU sister church in Eastern Tennessee. It touches me deeply, and I like singing it. But it's not my song. It is not our song. That was a song sung by enslaved persons to express the depth of their pain, their lostness, their despair. We don't get to use that song to express white pain, no matter what pain that is. And we all have pain and loss, and we did not suffer it on top of the anti-blackness our African American siblings live with every day of their lives. They may sing this song as their own if they wish. We can only sing it in acknowledgement of the generations of amassed misery racialized black people carry with them, misery we participate in every day because we racialized white folk are racist. I know, it's so hard to hear. I know because I feel it too. But we must remember that however uncomfortable we feel about this, black folk feel more uncomfortable every day of their lives trying to live and work among us. Black folks walk on eggshells. They laugh off microaggressions and suffer countless indignities, while white folks strive to maintain our own comfort and justify our privilege as something less heinous. Dr. Kihana Miraya Ross, professor of African American Studies at Northwestern University, writes in an op-ed for the New York Times, "People are in the streets today because years ago we marched peacefully and we belted Negro spirituals, hoping they would recognize our humanity. We wore afros like crowns, remembering our beauty. We put our fists in the air, demonstrating our strength. We declared that our lives matter in every gorgeous dimension, demanding they stop killing us in the streets and in our homes with impunity. People are in the streets today because despite all of the people who lost their lives, literally and figuratively, in this fight for Black life, the struggle continues." Has progress been made since Dr. King led marches? Well, we'd like to think so. Many surface things have changed. Schools were desegregated, right? Of course, then with white flight, they were quickly resegregated, and most remain so today. Racialized Black folk got the right to vote again, but keep having a hard time holding on to that right. Just look what happened in Georgia a few days ago. How much legislation in this country over the past several decades has resulted in people not racialized as white losing access to voting. Some things have changed. Many things have not. Well, our workplaces and institutions are much more diverse. I got an email from the University of Alabama about events sponsored by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. We certainly believe in diversity and long for more in our own congregation, right? So let's ask this question that Resma Menachem asked in his interview broadcast on NPR. Diverse from what? Diverse implies a standard, a starting point from which we diverge. If we are looking for diversity, we who are racialized white are looking for those who are diverse from us. We are the starting point. Our white supremacy culture is the standard from which we might diverge to invite the other into our circle. It really is not a surprise that people racialized as other than white are not flocking to our liberal, well-intentioned, diversity-yearning congregation. I know that we are nice and that we mean well, but most people of color are exhausted from dealing with white folks in their daily lives. Why would they want to have to do it on Sunday as well? The uncomfortable truth is that we who are racialized white have a lot of work to do, internal and external work, hard work, painful work. We have to let go of pride and fear. We have to admit our racism and educate ourselves. We cannot ask our friends of color to do that for us. They have other work they need to do, and we white folk cannot tell them what their work is, nor force them to do our work for us. Dismantling white supremacy culture will not be easy or quick. We are far from done, and it will take all our lifetimes to see those structures come down and a new world built in its place. If you are not uncomfortable, you are not paying attention. Live in your discomfort and consider it your call to anti-racism work. We should all be uncomfortable. We are all called to the work. If you are upset by what I have said today, make that your starting point. Ask yourself what exactly upset you. How does that narrative function to motivate you to educate yourself more about racism and white supremacy culture? If you disagree, get informed. Black folk are dying out there. We cannot afford to stand by and do nothing. Black lives matter. Until Black lives matter, no lives matter. Feeling uncomfortable? Good. That's a step in the right direction. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound. In that land where I'm bound.
Please read the words in the order of service along with me. As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
Neighbors and kindred, justice work is not always easy, but it is absolutely necessary. During these difficult times, let us remember that we are still working for justice. Go in peace.